All right, good afternoon. It is Monday, July 27th. I'm going to give a few more people a minute to come in. Um, we can just get a chat thumbs up that you all can hear me clearly. We anticipate that the group is small this week, but we wanted to grow a little more. So tell your colleagues who can. There we go. Thank you, Mackie. Tell your colleagues who can that we have a fascinating lineup for them this week. We're really exciting. We're calling this Connections Transition Week. Basically, what it is we're moving as we bring connections to the close. This will be our final week of these kinds of programming. Um, we're looking at other possibilities of what to do to keep us all connected. So we'll get back to you all and give you a heads up of what the transition will be moving to by Friday of this week. Two quick announcements for you. I just want to give you a lineup of who's coming tomorrow. We will have Bill and the IT team spend some time with us, take all of your questions, talk a little bit more in detail about how they can be of assistance to you. On Wednesday, we are pretty fortunate to have our own VP. So Ryan Nesbitt, the Vice President for Finance and Administration, will be joining us along with Brett just to talk about, well, first as an introduction for those who haven't had a chance to meet Ryan, and then to talk a little bit more beyond auxiliaries, to talk about FNA and the services that and the units are a part of the Finance and Administration Division. On Thursday, again, all of these days, we want a lot more of you to get involved. On Thursday, we have an opportunity to hear from Robert and to bid Robert farewell. His last day is Friday, but his schedule wouldn't allow for us to do it on Friday. So we're going to do Thursday, excitingly but sadly bidding farewell to Robert. So join us. Robert's going to give his final words for those who won't have an opportunity to walk by and say hi and say bye. This will be an opportunity for you to come and say your final farewell to him. We'll open up the mics and hear from you. And then on Friday, Mariah from the dining team, and for those of you who were on the calls last week, volunteered, and we took up that offer. She is going to answer any nutrition questions that you have. So if you have a nutrition question that you've been thinking about, what do I eat for this condition, or how can I maximize my protein intake, or any of that kind of stuff, Mariah will be here to answer those questions for us. So got a pretty good lineup. Two things I need to also tell you. One is that UGA is trending. If you haven't read or heard the news, UGA is trending. And if you're wondering why, I will tell you why. A UGA student taking their final exam last week or sometime was eating a meatball sub and dropped her meatball sub on her laptop. And the meatball hit finish. And so she completed her final exam before she was finished and got a failing grade and could not go back in. She wrote the instructor a beautiful letter explaining the meatball episode. And much to our chagrin, the instructor was very graceful to allow her to take the exam again. So just a little fun tidbit on UGA trending for you. If you're coming back to work and today is your first day, please make sure to check your desk, check under it. If you see any spiders or those kinds of things, feel free to call FMD. There's a service line, Julia, right, that they can call that will come and take care of that. I say that because I just went to the Tate parking deck, decided that I was going to take the call from there, and I was going to stand next to one of the booths and do this intro. And I tried the first door and then tried the second door, and believe it or not, I got swarmed by bees and got stung 4 times. I'm not allergic, so I'm fine. And we've already called FMD, and they're doing that. And Julia's explanation of that is that the bees had taken over for 4 months, and what business did I have being at the parking deck? So thank you all again for joining us. Thank you all for being a part of the auxiliary services team. We're excited to have Alan Coker come back by popular demand to give us some words of encouragement. moving forward. So Alan, I'm going to turn things over to you. Welcome back.
I appreciate that, Randolph. Thanks for the opportunity. And I just want to say hello to everybody, and to Shaterika. I want to say habari, bana safiwe, miminiala. That was a little bit of Swahili for Shaterika when I learned that she was Kenyan. I love that country and have spent quite a bit of time over there. Today, I've been asked by Randolph if I would kind of continue what we've been talking on in the past. And so what I decided to do today was look into myself and say, what are 4 or 5 characteristics I want to see in myself as we return to campus? And so what I've done is I've come up with 4 characteristics I want to share with you today. And I actually called this characteristics that I'm trying to follow when we return to campus. And I wanted to share what my thoughts were on that. Many years ago, I had the opportunity to study under Leighton Ford. Leighton Ford is an internationally known speaker, and got to do some studying under him. And he wrote a book called The Power of the Story. And what I learned from him is if you want people to remember the main points you're speaking about, give them a story to go with it. He said if they can remember the story, they'll always remember the point. So that's what I want to do with you today. I want to share some stories from my background, from my life, and share with you the points or characteristics that I'm going to use as I come back on campus. First story I want to share with you is, as many of you knew, I'm a veteran and flew in the United States Air Force and actually flew with the Marines, but I had the opportunity early on in the early 1990s to fly, fight, and defend for the United States of America. During that time, I had the opportunity to fly 28 combat missions into Iraq, flying out of Turkey. It was about the 2nd or 3rd night of the Persian Gulf War, and we'd been beat up pretty bad in one part of northern Baghdad. And so what we decided was to send 18 F-16s right down the middle of the locker to see if we could break the Iraqi defenses apart. When we did that, it wound up, unfortunately for us, being the bloodiest night of the Persian Gulf War for aviators. That particular night, we had 3 shot down. We had Mike Tico Tice was shot down, Mike Roberts, and also another aviator that I don't remember his name, but he crashed and died there on the sands of northern Iraq. The other 2, Tico and Mike Harry Roberts, I had an opportunity to sit down and talk with at the end of the war. Both of them were captured, and both of them became prisoners of war. I was sitting in Saragossa, Spain in the officers club when I saw Mike Roberts walk in, and I knew he had been captured that night. And as an aviator, you always wanted to know, how does somebody react when they're in the hands of the enemy? You want to know what went on, what gave them the strength to go through. See, Mike was captured, and as soon as they captured him, they tied his arms behind his back and they put a hood over his head, put him in the back of a truck, and they took him to a holding place in Baghdad. During that time, they interrogated him by having him sit on a little 12-inch stool with a hood over his head, and they would ask him questions. And each time they would ask him a question and he would refuse to answer or wouldn't give the answer they wanted to hear, a guard was standing right beside him with a 2x4, and he would swing it like a baseball bat, and it would hit Mike in the jaw, lifting him off the chair, crashing face first into the floor. He went through several of these sessions over and over. During that time, his skull was cracked, his jaw was broken, he lost some teeth. And I'm sitting there looking at Mike, and I said, Mike, what gives a person the strength to go through that? And he said, Alan, I got my strength from 3 things: my God, my family, my country. He said, that's the priorities I kept in my head the whole time. I knew I had to be strong. And that's one thing I want to share with you is we're coming back to campus. We know we have to be strong. We don't know exactly what all's out there. We don't know what's going to happen, but we've got to fall back on what gives us our strength. And I've used Mike's priority on that ever since then. My God, my family, my country. And as you've heard me speak before, when I use that, I also say that has helped me put priorities together in life. So that's one characteristic that I want to have when we return back to campus. I want to be strong. I want to be standing there moving forward, no matter what's thrown, to be able to make it through. And I want to challenge you to be strong too. And we'll come back to that at the end of this session. Another thing is I think we got to be studied. We got to understand what our jobs are and how we can best do them. One of the most studied people I ever met was a lieutenant by the name of Todd Kemper. Todd was in the United States Marine Corps. And when I flew with them, Todd knew everything about the airplane. He not only knew how to fly it, he knew how every part of it worked. He knew all the tactics that we used when we had to fly the aircraft, especially going into an enemy situation. What even impressed me more is he knew the enemy's aircraft. He knew how they were going to react. He was one of the most studied young men I'd ever met. During the Persian Gulf War, he had been assigned to a Marine ground unit. During that time, he had to take his men through a minefield to engage the Iraqis. Todd did that. He was a captain at the time, engaged the Iraqis, and it was a pretty bloody battle in that point. And he had a couple of his Marines that got shot up and injured. And Todd turned over his leadership to a senior NCO, and he took those two wounded men through that minefield. 2 times he went through that minefield. He takes them back and takes them to the hospital that's set up there, the bivouac. And then for the 3rd time, Todd goes back through that minefield. He goes through there, they engage the enemy one more time, and he and his Marines come out victorious. And for the 4th time on that long day, Todd came back through that minefield with Iraqi prisoners of war, but also with the remainder of his men being safe. He was so studied on everything going on. I remember talking to him after the war, and I said, Todd, how did you know what was going on? And he said, Alan, I studied their tactics. I studied everything I could find on them. I knew where every one of the landmines were. And that's something that really hit me as we're returning back. We need to be studied. We need to know our jobs so well that we don't have to think about it. We can go forward with it. As you've heard me speak before, I'm a big believer that we're all lifetime learners. We continue to learn and learn. So from Todd, I learned I want to be studied. The more I can know about my job, but even more, the more I can know about others and those that we work with. In our case, in many cases, as the customers, we will be able to react better and come back. So we want to be strong. We want to be studied. But another characteristic or trait I thought about is you got to be single-minded. That's just another way of being focused. Before I flew fighter type aircraft, I actually had the opportunity to fly tactical reconnaissance for multiple years. All that is a fast moving spy plane. Back in the Cold War, there was a mission called the Bonsai Mission. In Bonsai Missions, if you were ever called on that in reconnaissance, you knew that those missions were coming from the White House. You knew that there was something so important that the President of the United States and the Joint Chiefs of Staff needed that information to make a decision that was going to impact internationally. The way you knew you were going to be on a Bonsai mission is when you walked into the flight crew room, all of the US markings were taken off your uniforms. All the flags, all the patches, your name. Also going on a Bonsai mission, as you got briefed by Intel, they would take your ID cards, they would take your wallet. They didn't want you to be identified in case something happened. I thought this was just going to be a routine mission when we were over in England one day. And I walk into the squadron, and myself and Colonel Dave Harrington have been tapped to do a Bonsai mission. We go in and we brief with Intel. They tell us, hey, here's the information that is wanted, and we need you to plan for this. We need to bring it back. Here's the impact it's going to have on an international decision. On that, we had to stay single-minded. We focused upon that mission, what we had to get done, how we were going to do that, and then come back safely. During that time, Intel told us that it was a pretty soft target. And what that meant, there weren't a lot of enemy in the area. We weren't expected to run into any MiGs. So we take off from our base in England and we head towards where the target area is, the information, and we're staying focused the whole time. We have one thing to do that day, and that's come back with the information that the President of the United States and the Joint Chiefs of Staff needs. As we're flying in, we get a call to get in touch with the command post. We call the command post and they say the target's gone from soft to hot. In the middle of a mission that we're focused on, that we're going to get this job done, it's gone from an easy target to a hard target. We get into a certain area and drop the aircraft down to about 200 feet. And as we're driving in, we look over across the valley and there's Sandy Facts. What Sandy Facts are, they're forward air controllers, and they were there for one reason, and that was try to pull us out in case we got shot down, because we knew the area was hot. We drove past them, and it was kind of funny too. As I looked over the Sandy Facts and we're coming through, I keyed the mic and talked to Colonel Harrington. I said, "This is going to be a hot one." And all he said was, "Yep." We drove in to the target area, and at that point, that particular mission is still classified. I'm here to tell you, because that day we stayed focused. That day we were single-minded and went forward. We were able to come back and provide the information that was needed by the White House and by the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Due to that particular mission, we saw the Soviet Union during the Cold War take 6 divisions and move them back from a border near Germany. I'm sharing all that with you to say there's times we've got to be focused upon the task in front of us. We have to figure out, what do we need to get done? How do we do that and stay focused? We can't let the distractions come in. And I tell you, coming back the way we are now, there are going to be distractions coming in. We've got customers to serve. We've got students to take care of. We've got employees to take care of, and we need to stay single-minded. We need to know why we're there, what our mission is, and know that we're going to carry it out. And the beauty of it is, especially with this team, is we're going to carry out that mission and we're going to come out the other side victorious. Another area I want to talk to you about is striving lawfully. And if you notice, I've talked about being strong, being studied, being single-minded, but strive lawfully. And what that is you have to abide by the rules. And we're in a situation now, as you watch all this information come out, that the rules are changing daily, but we have to comply. We're looking at things that come from the governor's office, things that come from USG, things that come from public health, and things that come in transportation, from federal transportation, health department.
Alan, I think you're muted. So if you can unmute for us. Looks good right now. Now it's going back and forth. So right now you're muted. If you click it again.
Hang on
We
one
can try
second.
to do it from our end for you, Alan. All right. Bear with us, folks, for a second while we.
It looks like
Alan,
you
yep,
unmuted.
you're good now. You're
That
good to
sounds
go.
good. Yeah, something must have happened on that end. All of a sudden it popped up muted and I haven't even touched the keyboard. I can't talk without using my hands. But
well, we've got you back.
okay, great. What I was talking about was striving lawfully, all these rules we have to abide by. And people don't understand too that when you deploy somewhere, when you go into other countries, especially when you're in a combat situation, there's a thing called the rules of engagement. As I told you earlier, we were flying out of Turkey and going into northern Iraq and coming down towards Baghdad from that particular area. Well, when we got there, we did not fly for the first 12 hours because they sat down to teach us all the rules of engagement. They told us what we could do, where we couldn't do. They told us what altitudes we had to be at to talk to AWACS before going into enemy territory. Because see, we were flying north of Syria. Syria had said, if you drift over near our border, we're going to shoot you down. If you went too far past the gap is what we called it going to Iraq. There was Iran, which was a country that wasn't friendly to the US. So we wanted to respect those borders. We also had to know the rules on air refueling, where they were going to be, etc. We had so many rules. Like I said, it took half a day for them to brief us up before we ever flew our first mission into Iraq. Life is full of rules. And that's one thing, as I started out, as we go forward, we have to strive lawfully. We have to follow those rules. We have to move forward. And in doing so, we're setting the standards for our customers, for the students, for our employees, for faculty, staff, whoever is we are supporting in auxiliary services. So the rules are going to change every day. We've got to be ready. Just a real quick recap. I'm going to then sum it up with one more story. And first, as we get ready to come back to campus, let's be strong. Through our own strength and coming together, we're going to be able to accomplish a lot and get through this. Number two, let's be studied. Let's know our positions, what we're supposed to do, and let's be the best at what we can do. Let's be single-minded. Let's be focused upon what we've called to do, and let's carry out that mission and complete it strong. And then let's strive lawfully. And by strive lawfully, let's follow the rules. We know they're going to change, but let's stay in line and once again, go through and complete the mission. Like I said, I just want to share with you one last story, and we'll wrap this up. This is more of a TED talk than anything, I guess. But one of the greatest things in being in the military was coming home. I remember coming back from the Persian Gulf War and flying into RAF Lakenheath, England. And as we're coming down the runway, we would come in a four-ship. And one thing I would always do so that my wife and daughter would know it was me, as we would come down the runway, I would roll upside down, go to the end, roll, and then pitch over the top. That was just one way to know that Daddy was coming home. And I remember coming back to RAF Lakenheath and looking down as we're coming down the runway, rolling the airplane upside down, looking at all the crowds that were standing there and the American flags that were waving and the signs, and then coming on into the landing and taxiing back to the hardened aircraft shelter and all the people lined up on each side of the taxiways. We were coming home. It was just a great welcome home occasion. But what was even better was 2 days later, I got to stand in that crowd. I got to stand in that crowd as I watched another squadron come home, colleagues of mine come back from the Persian Gulf. And it was kind of neat just standing there because it's real quiet. And then all of a sudden on the horizon, you see these 4 airplanes. And the first thing I heard was a child yell out, "Look, they're coming home. They're coming home." And as the jets got closer and the noise got louder, the crowd got louder and started cheering. And all they could hear is, "They're coming home. They're coming home." Because we knew we were all coming home. And once again, we were all going to be together. We were all going to be united, and we were all going to celebrate together. Well, I want to share with you today, on the 10th of August, we've got a homecoming at the University of Georgia. We're all going to come together. We're going to celebrate being together. We're going to cheer each other on, and it's going to be a great homecoming. We just long to be with each other, move forward. We're going to be strong. We're going to be studied. We're going to strive lawfully. We're going to be single-minded. But I told you we'd come back to strong. We're going to be auxiliary services strong. We're going to be Georgia strong, and we're going to be dog strong.
All right, Alan. Well, thank you so much. Quick question for you. Would you be open to questions? Because we can open folks' mics as they give questions and comments.
I'd be glad to.
All right, absolutely. So y'all, again, by popular demand, we brought Alan back and he talked about being strong, being studied, being single-minded, striving lawfully, being both auxiliary, UGA, and Georgia strong. Thank you, Alan. Questions or comments for Alan? Julia, can folks unmute themselves, or we'll have to unmute them?
I'll change the settings so that they can unmute themselves.
All right, just raise your hand for us and we'll unmute you while that setting's being changed. Questions, comments, thoughts for Alan? Chat over here. Alan, you've got a comment in the box from John Scargan saying, thank you, very inspirational. Other comments, other thoughts? I've got a question while folks are kind of thinking about it for you, Alan.
Yep.
So in the remaining study, particularly in times like these where information, the plans, the processes, and all of these things are moving and shaking all the time. How do a person, and if you can take it at different levels, it can be somebody in a leadership role, somebody in mid-management role, and somebody who's one of our individual contributors. How do they remain steady with all of these back and forth and changes?
One of those is you have to make study a priority. You have to give yourself time to learn more about your position, etc. I myself, before I ever come in to work in the morning, I've already gone through a couple of higher education reads of what's going on in the country at other campuses, what's going on with COVID-19, how is that impacting us in higher education. At the same time, can't tell, I like books on leadership. I always set time aside in the evening to read on leadership. And if you don't set time aside to do that, you just won't. I talked about Todd Kemper. Todd that day wound up with the Bronze Star, wound up retired as a colonel in the Marine Corps, just an awesome leader. But when I saw him study, it was because he had 10 minutes here, he had 5 minutes there, and he always had something he could pull over and look at and go and learn more about his position on that. It's something we have to make a conscious effort on. Everything we do to improve our lives, like I said today, characteristics I'm trying to do, these 4, you have to consciously try to do that and move forward.
Thanks for that, Alan. I see a comment from Robin. Robin, are you by chance in a place where we can unmute you?
Yes, I am.
All right, could you go ahead and give your comments again, just for folks who can't see the chat box?
Okay. Alan, I was just saying that your stories really put things into perspective, better perspective for us. Even though we realize, you know, people have been through worse situations in the country and in the world and made it to the other side, it helps to be reminded, you know, that so much more has went on, even things that involve the whole country, the whole world like this is. And we made it through that. So we'll make it through this.
We do. And Robin, you've helped me make it through once, Connect One and all that. So I appreciate that.
Oh, you're welcome.
There's always challenges. Randolph, you asked about studied. There were a few times I was on the phone with Robin saying, how do I do this? How do I do that? And I do appreciate her being a great team member and taking this old man through it.
Well,
You're very welcome.
That's good to hear. Just behind the scenes, you should know that when I say backed by popular demand, this idea was spurred by Robin, wanting to hear you again and
Okay,
wanting
Robin,
to get your
I'll come to you.
inspiration.
You know, you did it, Randolph, you know, pointed me out.
I had to, Robin. I had to. Any other, thanks again for your comments, Robin, and for
You're
pushing
welcome.
through this. Any other thoughts, questions for Alan? Julia, anything from your end?
Not seeing anything at the moment.
Okay.
Oh, Morgan just chimed in.
Go ahead, Morgan.
Okay, I guess I could just say it. Yeah, I was just wondering, sounds like you and several other people probably in this organization have a more of a finger on the pulse of like the rest of other national universities. Like where are we at compared to them, as opposed to like what percentage of them maybe are like doing similar to us, and which percentage are like going, okay, we're going to return but only online, or we're going to be something totally unrecognizable to what normal campus life would be like.
I tell you what, Morgan, first, I can't wait to get back on campus and meet you. I've heard a lot of your comments in here, and I've actually done a list of people I can't wait to meet when I get back on campus and you're on there. That is a great question. One thing I have found with the University of Georgia, we have been leading edge in making a decision and moving forward. I've seen a lot of the universities waver back and forth. Robert and I were talking this morning, some of the universities we've both been speaking with. Some have been very firm on we're going to do online only. Washington State, that was University of Washington. Washington State in the same state actually went back and forth a couple of times. We're going to go online. No, we're not. And so the wavering is, I think, mixing some people up. Like I said, what I can see is we're leading edge on making decisions, saying this is what we're going to do and moving forward. And so far, I've seen us moving forward and not taking any steps back. I've seen some other ones wavering. And we've even seen whole systems like the Cal State system out in California. Their president, just all 20-something of those universities are going online. Some of the University of California system, which is a different system than Cal State, they're actually bringing people on campus and doing instruction online. And so I don't think there's anything we haven't seen, Morgan. So I think I kind of talked about it, but that's what I've been seeing. And hopefully that helped answer your question.
No, that's pretty much it. Like from just the public person who is interested in what other universities are doing as a academic kind of curiosity, that's about what I've gotten is like a lot of them are dithering. Some of them have seemed to have definitely chosen online only, but I haven't seen a lot that seem to be doing what we're doing and publicizing the fact that they're like, these are the ways we're doing it. For us, from what I've seen, like so many people are like, are you worried? Are you worried? I'm like, no, I'm really not worried. I've seen what my bosses are talking about and what they're doing. I don't have any fear I'm going to get COVID from anybody, or am I going to give COVID to somebody if I accidentally get it somewhere else? I have more danger at the grocery store than I am going to work, I think. But
Yep.
like what everybody else seems to be worried about, it makes me feel like maybe other places are not being as cautious as we are. And I was wondering about that. Like,
I think you're right on the pulse of that. I think that, again, we're leading edge on all that. I can remember back in March when Robert put me on this COVID-19 planning committee for the university. Immediately, we started talking about how do we get masks? How do we get gloves? How do we get sanitation equipment? How do we get mist sprayers, et cetera? And we knew that FMD already had some of that. So we started reaching out on transportation. So I truly believe we're leading edge. And hopefully, Morgan, if you've heard me speak, I think we as individuals are responsible for ourselves. Yes, we've got to love each other. We've got to work with each other. We've got to move together as a team, but we also have personal responsibility. And I'm of the mind right now of what's been done at UGA and what I know about this. If I get COVID, it's probably going to be my fault. That may be pretty bold, but that's my ego talking to me.
indeed, right on. Well, thanks.
All right. Thank you again, Morgan. Go ahead. Sorry, Alan.
No, I just said I thanked Morgan. Like I said, I look forward to meeting her.
Good thing. Well, like I say, if you want to come by North Deck, the lower booth is where I plan to be in the afternoons.
Oh, you might have messed up. I know where to find you now.
Take care. I'll see you then.
Hey, thank you.
Robert, I see you're unmuted. Did you want to chime in? I have another question that we can take after you chime in.
No, I just was going to kind of back up a little bit what Alan was saying. He and I had spent some time off and on throughout this process, but more even today, sitting down and just sharing some of the things that we both know. I think Morgan's question is a good one because we have been engaged with a lot of universities. And one of the things that I've seen people go back and forth on with all the other universities is they put a plan in place and they pull it back. And they put a plan in place and they pull it back. And our plan didn't go forward and announced until we had actually fully flushed it out. That doesn't mean there won't be changes because everything is fluid and we're waiting to see what's happening with all the pandemic stuff going forward. A lot of the things that we're doing have to do with things that we've always done too. You know, when you're looking at the dining program, the sanitation has always been there. The social distancing and the spacing is an important piece that we've been focusing on. Looking at the masks, and I was on one of the buses the other day talking with one of the drivers, and you know, looking at all the things that we're trying to do, what we're doing is we're planning. What we're going to have to react to is what the students actually do when they're here. That's the biggest challenge, is that You know, when we're looking at it, and many of you know that I'm retiring, but after I decided to do that, I'm going to the University of California, Riverside. And they've decided to go to online classes, but they're bringing the students back into housing. That for me is more of a challenge because what we're looking at is here, the students are going to be focused on their academics. When you put people online instead of in classroom, they can still be focused on their academics, but they find that they have more free time to do things. And when they're doing that, the likelihood that they're going to continue with their social distancing and paying attention to the things that are going to keep them and others safe is diminished. It takes a big hit. So when we're looking at being able to bring people back to campus and we're looking at all the plans that have gone in place, it's much better that we have the classes going along with that and not just bringing people back to the campus. There's a big push for the students where they want to come back to the campus, both from the social aspect of being on campus, but also our student workers too. So we need to make sure that we're sending the right message and connecting with them. And all the stuff that Alan was talking about today goes right in line with that. You know, we need to know what the rules of engagement are. We need to be able to know what the path is. We need to know when something goes from soft to hot. You know, we need to understand those things and we need to adapt to that. So I will tell you that, you know, I've had some great conversations with Alan. The team here is very focused. I'm confident in your guys' abilities moving forward. So that's all I have.
Thanks, Robert. Alan, we have a question for you from Jane, and it ties in line with some of the comments that you and Morgan and Robert have made in terms of the enthusiasm for opening and seeing our students and seeing each other in our spaces again. Jane is saying that, you know, not everyone share that enthusiasm. In fact, some people laugh behind our backs of how pumped we are. How can one deal with that?
Well, I learned a long time ago, I'm responsible for my own thoughts, my own actions, my own words. At this age, believe me, I've been laughed at behind my back a lot of times, and I just let it roll off that back. Gene, I think that's a good question. And that kind of comes into a little bit what I talked about, being studied and focused on what you've been called to do here at the university. I've seen you on here several times. That's what it comes down to. If we sit there and waste our, and I maybe speaking out, but I call it wasting time with the naysayers, we're never going to go forward. And guess what? In this life, I've learned, especially in auxiliaries, I've had naysayers and I've gone forward and I've failed. I've had naysayers and I've gone forward and I've succeeded. But I didn't let the naysayers stand in the way of any of that, because every time what they saw as a failure, I saw as a learning opportunity and was able to take that, apply that to my bag of wisdom and move forward. There's some decisions I'll never make again because I messed it up that bad. We're all human. And if you've heard me speak before, I always talk about that as a team going on. I think forgiveness, grace, and mercy is what really brings a team together. But I think that is a great question. Let's move forward with our enthusiasm and just keep going forward. And I see, I love what Morgan just put up there. If it is to be, it's up to me. And I tell you, it takes a lot of me's to put team together. And so, Gina, hopefully I answered your question, but that's my feeling.
Kind of frozen a little bit again, but thanks, Jane.
Oh, looks like Randolph might be frozen now.
I think so.
Mark chimed in. Are there any plans if UGA is forced to do a major course correction?
Well, Mark, on that one, the plans, if we do a major course correction, it's an old thing I used to use in the military. That's above my pay grade. I'm sure there are plans if something has to change, because one thing I've seen at UGA is there are plans, backup plans, and as Robert just shared, everything is vetted very well before we move forward. So I'm sure there's plans there. Do I know about them or have any detail? I really don't.
Hey, Alan, I'll chime in there real quick and just say,
Great.
there are plans to the plans to the plans to the backup plan. So I think if there's one thing that we have done as a university, we have absolutely looked at every possible scenario. If I've given people, one what if kind of piece of information, I've given them 100. So I just want you to have assurance that people are thinking forward to the what ifs, and there may still be a what if that we haven't considered, but we've probably come pretty close as a university to considering just about everyone. So just rest assured of that. And I'll take a minute too while I'm on here just to say, Alan, appreciate your words today. I think very wise. And what I took away from that, as far as you talking about the strength and the focus, is perseverance. We have all got to persevere through this fall. It's not going to be easy, but life never is. And I think as a team, we certainly can do that together. So I look forward to being able to do that with you all this fall. And I really believe in each and every one of you, and that we can persevere and overcome what's before us.
Absolutely. It seems like the 2 o'clock internet ghost is back and alive. Any other comments or thoughts? We don't intend to keep you all much longer if there aren't, but just wanted to make sure we capture anyone's thoughts before Alan gives us his final words. Any other comments or thoughts? All right, if nothing, feel free to join us for the rest of the week. Exciting times. Tap somebody on their virtual shoulder and let them know Bill and team will be here tomorrow. VP Ryan will be here on Wednesday, and we get to bid Robert Adio on Thursday, and Mariah talks nutrition for us on Friday. Exciting week, exciting times. Alan, final words for us?
No, I think we're at a perfect point. One of my best friends in the military is just passed on, Colonel Ben Purcell. He's a prisoner of war for 5 years. And he said, remember something, Alan, freedom and time are precious. Don't waste people's time. So we're not going to waste your time. We're going to get out of here. So y'all have a great afternoon. Look forward to seeing you on campus at the homecoming.
Take care. Enjoy. We're giving you 17 minutes of your time back. Thank you all. Goodbye.